into the Jewish rebellion, the revolution against Roman rule that happens, from 66 to 74 A.D. Now, this rebellion, this revolution erupts because of Jewish outrage over Roman misrule. The Romans conquer Palestine in 64 B.C. Pompey the Great is victorious over the Seleucid dynasty, and they essentially split Palestine into two Roman provinces. The north, the province of Syria, and the south, the province of Judea. Now, there's a series of corrupt officials and corrupt governors who essentially bleed the populace dry. They're seriously overtaxed. And the Romans set up a puppet king, a series of puppet kings, the Herodian dynasty, who are not very popular with the people. They're great builders. They love massive architecture, but there's a serious socioeconomic malaise during the Herodian dynasty. There's great debt to Rome. There's massive unemployment. There's social and religious divisions. There's crime. There's injustice. There's unrest. And these social ills breed rebellion and breed rebel movements within the Jewish people. Now, there is in fact a Jewish coalition that emerges in 66 A.D. The Zealots pop up at the outset of the rebellion. Now, this coalition is a series of popular groups who basically combine in seeking the overthrow of Rome. And they convince other Jews to rise up in rebellion. Now, essentially what happens is Eleazar, who's one of the high priests at the temple, bans any animal sacrifice to the Emperor Nero. Well, Rome is utterly shocked and outraged by this banning of animal sacrifice, and they consider this an act of war. So Nero sends the Roman governor of Syria, Cestius Gallus, to smite the Jews. Well, Mr. Cestius Gallus is just as bad a military commander as he was a governor. He's very overconfident, and he severely underestimates the Jewish anger and tenacity at the Romans. So he loses the first round and retreats to the city of Ptolemais, which is Monday Acre. Well, the Zealots, this Jewish coalition of militant groups, interpret the Roman retreat as a sign from God that rebellion and war, it's time for war against the Romans. Well, this retreat by Cestius Gallus essentially ignites the fires of revolution against the might of Imperial Rome. And the Essenes are involved in this rebellion. The Essene Benjamin, son of Joseph, is an early leader of the Zealots. Now, there's a problem with the Zealots, okay? They cannot unite. They fight amongst themselves. In fact, even though they have a common enemy, their hatred for Rome, the Jewish nation is seriously divided. Eleazar, the temple official, is the mortal enemy of Menachem. These guys hate each other, and they struggle for power. Well, Menachem is, in fact, the leader of the Dagger people, known as the Sicarii. The Sicarii are urban terrorists who essentially are intoxicated with blood. Their M.O. is to blend into the crowd, pick out an enemy, kill him, and then blend back in to the crowd. And, The leader of the Sicarii basically attacks who he feels is collaborators to the Romans, and there's a series of purges. Well, these purges make the people not very happy, and they rise up against Menachem, and the crowd stones him. There's an angry crowd. They grab stones and they start chucking them at Menachem. Menachem escapes, but he's captured by the temple priests and tortured to death. Now, when this happens, the Sicarii, the dagger people, leave the revolt in Jerusalem and go to Masada. And Jerusalem becomes increasingly divided and isolated. Now, in 67 A.D., Vespasian enters the picture. There's a new Roman sheriff in town. Now, he's sent to the east by Nero, who is nowhere near as insane or incompetent as he is often portrayed by historians. He's actually, at least for the first half of his reign, he's a pretty good emperor. Well, he's sent to the east by Nero, Vespasian, to suppress the Jewish revolution. Now, Vespasian is a tough, professional, no-nonsense soldier who assumes command and soon overruns Galilee with 160,000 men and machines. He quickly recovers the city of Jericho and the city of Emmaus and many of the other coastal cities. Vespasian also manages to isolate the insurgents. He basically also prevents intervention by the kingdom of Parthia, who are Rome's rivals to the east. Had the Parthian kingdom entered the war, the outcome for the Jewish people may have been very, very different. Now, Vespasian, as I mentioned, is a no-nonsense, no corruption, professional soldier. You don't do what Vespasian tells you, well, there's only one thing left. Crucifixion, crucifixion, crucifixion. You don't do what Vespasian tells you to do, well, it's crucifixion for you. So, there's a different tone in the Jewish war now. There's a no-nonsense commander, but the Jews give the Romans fierce resistance. They fight very, very valiantly, even though they have a lack of weapons. They have no cavalry to speak of, and they have very limited resources. These people are extremely brave and courageous and fight on against overwhelming odds. Now, the Jews employ what is essentially the wrong strategy, and it dooms them to failure. They're essentially defending strongholds and citadels, and that's a mistake because the Romans are experts in siege warfare. Given time, men and machines, there's virtually nothing that Roman engineers can't do. And these defended citadels and strongholds, well, they topple like dominoes, one city-state after the other. So, in 68 A.D., Vespasian is proclaimed emperor by the Eastern legions, and he seizes the imperial throne, runs off to Rome, and ceases operations against Jerusalem. Well, in 69 A.D., he becomes emperor, and he's a pretty damn good emperor, actually. He restores order to the empire and restores economic stability. 69 A.D. is known as the year of 6 emperors in Roman history. It's a great time of civil war, anarchy, and chaos, and Vespasian, being a no-nonsense professional soldier, restores order and stability to the empire. Now, Vespasian is, in fact, a new kind of emperor. As I mentioned, he's a middle-class soldier. He's not a partisan. He's not from the nobility. And his wide experiences in the army and provinces serve him very, very well. As I mentioned, there's little or no corruption under Vespasian. You do what you're told, or it's crucifixion, crucifixion, crucifixion. All right. Now, in 70 in 69 A.D., as Vespasian becomes emperor, well, he assigns his son Titus, who's a future emperor himself. He tells him to return to Palestine and continue the war. Well, Vespasian respects his Jewish enemies. Titus does not. Titus, in fact, hates the Jews. He views them as a thorn in the side of the empire, who must pay the penalty. They must pay the price. Terror must be maintained, or the empire will fall. This is Titus's view. All right, so there's fierce fighting between the Romans and the Jews. It's a series of slaughters and bloodbaths because the Romans have the superior army, they have superior tactical skill, and quite frankly, Roman victory is never really in doubt. Now, Jerusalem, at this point in time, is slowly starving. People are eating rats. They're boiling straw and drinking the broth. Well, in July 70 A.D., the Romans attack their final assault on Jerusalem. They scale the walls, march to the temple district, and capture the city. Well, Titus, even though he hates the Jews, is very, very superstitious, and he's reluctant to destroy the temple. And he tells the Jewish rebels, the Jewish revolutionaries, that he will not burn the temple if the Jews surrender. Well, they, of course, refuse, and Titus spares nothing. The temple is destroyed. It's burned to the ground. A lone centurion picks up a torch and sets the blaze. The Jews, even in the midst of battle, try valiantly to extinguish the flames, and many are killed or burned alive. As I mentioned, nothing in the temple is spared. The Holy of Holies, the inner sanctum, is destroyed. The treasury, the gold and silver from the temple, is looted. And the temple is essentially left in ruins. All that remains standing is a courtyard wall, known today as the Wailing Wall. Of course, this destruction of the Second Temple is a traumatic event, and the Jewish faith is essentially reduced to ashes. The Jews have no land of their own. They have no temple of their own. And the Second Temple is burned to the ground on the very same day on which the First Temple was destroyed by the Kingdom of Babylon, which I believe is July 8th. Is this an eerie coincidence? The destruction of the Second Temple on the anniversary of the destruction of the First Temple. Is it fate? Is it destiny? Is it an eerie coincidence, or is it an act of God? Well, that's a question I simply cannot answer. Well, these Jewish wars of rebellion against Rome are in fact very, very well documented. We have a Jewish/Roman historian who writes everything down. He's known as Josephus Flavius.